Okay, in this demo I'm going to cover basic data transformation and multi-layer maps. The scenario is oil and gas oriented when in most cases the user has latitude and longitude per well, as well as basic production information. We want to use all the data we have available to create a map chart that is going to look like this, where we will combine a future layer that has Texas roads information. This is usually a shape file. Then we will have a marker layer that has the well location. This is using the latitude and the longitude information. And then we will have a third layer that will show production data for a specific well after marking this well on the map. So this layer is going to be an on-demand layer, and this pie will show only for the selected wells. We will do this step by step. Our first step is to take a look of the actual data that we have. We have latitude and longitude information per well, and we have liquid, gas, and water production in 3 different columns. Let's create a map chart. As you can tell, just by clicking the map chart icon, we will immediately be able to see all the wells into our map chart. Why? Because Spotfire is recognizing the latitude and longitude information that is already on your table. If for some reason you are not able to see this right away, just double check that the positioning is pointing to the right columns from your starting table. Okay, a second step will be to add that future layer that is usually coming from a shape file, and in this case we want to add that information that is providing Texas roads data to our map chart. To do this, we will go to File, Add Data Table, File, and just look for the shape file that you have to add this information. As soon as we load this table into Spotfire, you can see that one column that is going to have the geometry information. Now to add that file as a layer on the map, go to Properties, Layers, and we're going to add a future layer that is coming from the table that I just added. In my case, a shape file coming from my personal computer. This will provide the option of visualizing or not any of the layers that you already added. So in this case, we have a future layer that has these geometries for the different roads in Texas, and we have a marker layer that is showing well information using the latitude and the longitude that we have from the starting table. And we can zoom in and zoom out anytime we want using the properties of the map chart. Now for the third step, we will need to do some data transformation. Why? For the third step, we want to build a pie that shows production distribution. For this to happen, these 3 columns need to be 1 column. This is an Unpivot, okay? So to unpivot the data, go to File, Add Data Table, use the starting table that you already have in your file, and define that you want to unpivot that data table using the data transformation options that Spotfire provides out of the box. At this window, you select the 3 columns that you want to combine in one. You have now a category and a value column, and then the rest of the columns can just pass as they are. You can see the preview and be sure that that's exactly what you need. Click OK and click OK. So if I add a second table here, we can compare the initial table with 3 columns versus the Unpivot version of it that is combining these 3 columns into two, where we have a category that has the asset and then the value, combining the three assets. Be sure these two tables are related. In the data table properties, you see that they are sharing the same color, and you can double check that they are related. In this occasion, we are using the well ID to relate the two tables, original table and then the Unpivot after we transformed the original table. Now our last step is to ensure that that third layer on the map chart, it's going to happen, it's going to show only when we click a well on the map, like this. For this to happen, we need to be sure of two things. Number one, we know using the properties that the layer that is showing the well information using latitude and longitude, it's marking under this marking option. Number two, the third layer, it's coming from the Unpivot table that we just transformed, and that it's using just the marking data from the well layer. And then on the shape option, be sure that you have pi selected and you are coloring and sector sized using the value and the category columns that you just created using the data transformation. So if I click in a different well, I will see the distribution for that specific well. If I click in more than one well, I will see the distributions for all the wells that I have marked at the same time. Now, as a bonus, in addition to the marker layer and the feature layer that we just added, you could add a WMS layer coming from a public server or a private server. So if you have that URL information, you can go to Properties and in the Layer option, add a WMS layer, and in the WMS layer settings, just use that URL information to add a geology layer, for example, as you can see here.